Hello and welcome to Adapt Radio. I'm Dr. Claire O'Connell and today we're talking about AI and the classroom.
From the Adapt Centre at Trinity College, this is Adapt Radio, presenting groundbreaking innovations one conversation at a time.
AI has rapidly become an entrenched feature in education, which means teachers need to think closely about how to harness the power of AI as they create courses, and they need to think about the best way to assess students, who of course also have access to AI. Joining us on the podcast today are two experts involved in a new initiative to help teachers get up to speed with the technicalities and indeed the ethics of AI in the classroom. Laura Grehan is Head of Education, Engagement and Societal Impact at ADAPT and a member of the ADAPT Executive Management Committee. Dr. Eamon Costello is an Associate Professor of Digital Learning at Dublin City University and an accomplished teacher, researcher and public speaker. Laura and Eamon, you're both very welcome to the programme. So can I ask you both, I suppose, get your perspectives on why AI literacy is so important for teachers and educators in general right now?
I think we're all very much aware that in education, just as like many other sectors across society, that AI and generative AI in particular is having a profound effect on education. And teachers and school leaders are telling us that they lack sufficient guidance and training on how and if, I suppose, to use AI and Gen AI in particular, and knowing when and how it's appropriate for them and their students to use it. And if that wasn't tricky enough, it's coincided with the emergence of the additional assessment component of the Leaving Certificate. So we've seen the Teachers Union of Ireland, for example, raising significant concerns about the permitted use of AI in project work for the Leaving Certificate. So I think against this very challenging landscape, AI literacy has never been more important.
Eamon, would you agree?
Absolutely. Just to echo what Laura said, and it's really important that we give teachers something, because there's a team in MIT and they have a very useful frame for the AI, and they talk about arrival technologies versus adoption technologies. And some technologies you adopt and some arrive, and you sort of have to adapt, no pun intended, to them or live with them or figure out how to respond to them. So I think that's a really important thing that we'll need to work on, that it's here now. We get this sense that it's sort of appeared everywhere all at once. So often we have the case where I'm in higher education, things happen in higher education, they sort of trickle down into the ecosystem or whatever, and we're kind of building and using technologies here, educational technologies. But in this case, it seems to have arrived everywhere all at once in all sort of levels and sectors and all parts of society.
So AI has definitely arrived in education. And tell us a little bit more about the AI literacy in the classroom initiative. What is it?
So it's a training initiative, and we've designed it to boost the AI literacy of post-primary educators, and importantly, to help them empower their students to use AI critically and responsibly and ethically. We developed it with the teacher advisory panel just to ensure, I suppose, its relevance and applicability in the classroom. And we launched the initiative in October last year. Already we've 250 post-primary educators who've either participated in in-person workshops or have completed a self-led online course through the project website.
Brilliant. And you partner with Google on this, is that correct?
We do. So they've provided really generous funding for the initiative. We literally couldn't have done it without them. And I suppose for Google, the initiative aligns with their efforts to enable young people to engage safely and responsibly in the digital world. We found that they've actually been wonderfully supportive but hands-off. So they haven't looked to influence the training teams or content in any way. And we're currently planning a second phase of the project with them to broaden out the reach of the initiative substantially.
Oh, brilliant. And can you give us a sense of how the initiative works in practice? So like there are workshops, there's an online course, there are teaching resources. So if I were coming in as a teacher, what kind of options would be open to me and how would I experience them?
So it's a 90-minute course. And there's AI experts from ADAPT who've been involved in it, who have inputted, and also learning designers. And most importantly, as Laura said, it's co-designed by teachers. So that's a really critical element. And Dr. Mikhail Wizarek and Dr. Eileen Cullity have sections on AI literacy, AI ethics, what is AI, how does it manifest in particular tools, what are simple things you can do, what are the challenges in using it. So there's nice interactivities you can do, there's little tasks you can work on in your practice. There's talks about how you can play and experiment with tools. I think that's a really important thing for teachers, that they're given some freedom to experiment and with these things in their practice in ways that work for them, really. But also that the ethical component is very strong, and they have some good conceptual tools to deal with the ethical things, to decide for themselves how they want to adapt to the challenge of AI, because it may not be appropriate to use in some cases, or in many cases at all. So there's good underpinnings for them on that, an introduction to the key issues, really, because it's essentially the teachers who are going to tell us how they're using it and what they're going to do with it. So it gives them a flavor of the issues, essentially.
And can you give us some examples of the kinds of tools, the AI, how they could actually be of practical use for teachers?
Yeah, within the online course, I suppose there is a handy section once the teachers get to the end of the 2-module course called Bring It to the Classroom. So a practical example of this would be where we'd have the teachers ask their students to write an essay on something like the potential impact of Gen AI on students' writing skills, and then have the students use Gen AI to write an essay on the same topic and to note the differences. So looking at things like the student voice, and also encouraging students to really consider from a learning perspective, what are the advantages and disadvantages of Gen AI in a scenario like this? So how can the use of Gen AI either help or hinder students' writing skills, for example, in this little activity?
So not only are the teachers building their own AI literacy, they're also encouraging the students to build theirs. Is that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's to really, I suppose, initially to build up teachers' confidence in their own AI literacy, because we found a real gap there that's been also borne out in international studies showing that teachers, generally speaking, there are obviously many exceptions to it, but that in a general sense, teachers report having low levels of confidence in their ability to teach post-primary students on AI, and a feeling that the students know more than they do, which again isn't always the case. So really, it's designed to enhance teachers' awareness and understanding of AI and what AI literacy is, and the ethics associated with AI in the classroom, and to use that then to open up conversations with their students around what does ethical, responsible, and safe use of Gen AI in the classroom look like.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from the teachers when they do the course? First of all, do they come in sort of, is there a wide variety with the level of knowledge that they come in with? And then how does the course add to their knowledge? What kind of feedback are you getting?
We've found it's been quite mixed in terms of the backgrounds of the teachers and the school leaders. Some have really excellent understanding of the topics. Some have some understanding. And I think Eamon will share that we also have many teachers who will say, look, I know nothing about this area, so I'm here to from the very early stages of my AI literacy journey. In terms of the evaluation, I suppose, of the in-person workshops so far, we've had really strong reports from participants that they're better able to explain the core principles of AI literacy and ethics, better equipped to assess the benefits and risks of AI tools, and that they indeed did feel more comfortable discussing AI use with their students. So overall, the feedback has been excellent so far.
That's great. Eamon, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I found the workshops, to echo what Laura said, I found the workshops very valuable in that regard, just to have these conversations with the teachers and put them in conversation with each other, and with the tools, because they're sort of often very isolated and they have a lot of anxiety, understandably. So we did a lot of work with them as well. And what would this look like? How can we support each other through this? And how would you cooperate together? So we're not just giving them some skills and things, but some wider cooperative tools they can use, and plugging them into the networks and supports they have, and getting them to tap into those, because we were only giving them a short flavor of something. And so that was very important. And I think the feedback from the workshop has been very good. And the blended approach has come across very well, because like this podcast, Claire, I didn't do my homework. I barely read these questions. And the same with the people that came to the workshops. They were supposed to have done the course first, and many of them hadn't. But then when they come to the workshops, it's like a forcing function. So they're teachers, they're very bold. They never do their homework. But it was nice to be able to give them these two options where they could come and do that, and then they'd go back and do the course or refresh reviews. So we were able to link in to both with that. So it was very valuable, I think, in that regard.
Very good. And as you say, they have that sort of longer lasting network as well after the course, where they can stay in contact with each other and continue to share ideas. I suppose that's the thing about AI, isn't it? I mean, it's changing all the time. It's rapidly evolving. So how are you supporting teachers to sort of stay ahead, or stay at least on top of those developments?
I suppose what I see with the course and its benefits, so we had consulted with EJA, the Learning and Support Service funded by the Department of Education, around what their provision, their either current or upcoming provision around AI literacy training for teachers was. And at the stage of developing the course, it was very much focused on user skills, so knowledge of particular tools and how they could benefit teachers in their own roles. But we identified jointly that the critical thinking around AI use was a gap that we're hopefully starting to fill. So I think, independent of whatever the next iteration of Gen AI tools look like, the really important skill here that we're helping teachers to develop, and by extension their students, is that critical thinking. So what does it mean to use AI responsibly and ethically and safely? Regardless of the nature of the Gen AI tool.
And can you give me some examples of where a teacher or a student might face one of those sort of situations where there's an irresponsible or unethical way to use the AI, or there's a responsible and ethical way to use, just to give people an idea, a more tangible idea of what kind of situations might those be?
Yeah, so we have examples in the course, Claire, which are about talk to things like images, and how images can have biases in them. So one of the key things we're getting across is that the AI, generative AI, is trained on existing societal structures and representations of what we think, how we think the world is constructed. So if you're generating images using AI, whether you're a student or whether you're a teacher, you need to be aware that it will reproduce biases, and how the tools attempt to mitigate this with guardrails and so on, and the limitations of those. But it also helps people become aware of existing societal biases and inequities, and that there aren't simple fixes necessarily for these. But I think that's quite a common example that people face using these tools, is the issue of bias. So we address that quite a lot in the course.
So those biases can become literally a teachable moment where the teachers can help the students to have, as you say, Laura, that sort of more critical analysis of, well, you know, is this exacerbating some stereotype or some existing harm in society, and to be very aware of that, and to not kind of play it forward.
I think within the workshop, Eamon has a really excellent example of this. So Eamon, your Gen AI image of what would a group of Irish teachers and school leaders learn about AI literacy, how might that look? And there's quite a humorous response from the AI.
I asked the AI to take a selfie of me at a workshop. I'm really looking forward to this workshop with these Irish teachers about AI. And then I generate the selfie from DALL-E or whatever it is, and then I take a photograph of us in the workshop, and we compare them and contrast them and so on. but it gives us if you put that into ChatGPT, let's say, it actually adds, you can see it adds something to the prompt. It says create a diverse set of Irish teachers. So it injects some extra words into the prompt behind the scenes. You can see that in the metadata, the file name of the image that's produced. And it's doing that to try and mitigate against these existing biases on the data it's trained on. But there's also weird stuff in there, because when you ask for images of Irish people, you see actually the stereotypes are true, because Laura's wearing a lovely green jacket, right?
Yeah.
But if you generate pictures of Irish people, they're always wearing green because it's trained on pictures of Paddy's Day, right? So there's always sort of elements of paddywhackery that come through in the thing. So it's quite a nice, humorous, fairly innocuous example of the kind of racial or the ethnic or the sort of biases, cultural biases of what an Irish person is, you know. But you could imagine what that would be like if you're a black person or you're a woman and you're being stereotyped as to a particular role or a job or something else, you know. So it's quite a nice one. And it's bizarre because even some of the people have green eyes, there's green pupils in their eyes. So you get this sort of... you always get this slightly
scary.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the things about AI. You can do some fun and interesting things with it and have a look at the certain things, but it's bringing forward some of the limitations as well. And, you know, while we're giving teachers and students skills to navigate this world, it's going to be a pretty tricky world, because we're going to have a lot of digital trash out there that we're going to have to sort through, because it's never been easier to create content. So to come back to kind of Laura's key point about the critical literacy, that's when we're going to have to work on that. People will be evaluating information, classic things from information literacy, from media literacy theories and skills. So we're evaluating information and finding what information is trustworthy, identifying biases, identifying errors, and finding trustworthy sources of those skills and networks of people who can help you find good content and good ideas.
Very good. And I mean, it's wonderful that people, you know, teachers are building this literacy, the critical skills, you know, even through the slightly humorous examples, they're kind of getting a glimpse into that much darker, unethical side of AI. In terms of practicalities of bringing AI and these skills into the classroom, what about things like financial barriers, even language barriers? I'm thinking of Gail Scullin now, for instance, who teach through the medium of Irish. Are more supports needed in these areas to sort of make sure that everybody gets equal access to this AI literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we saw this reflected in the AI and education advice from the Ireland's AI Advisory Council that was released recently, that it called out this as one of the barriers, the financial barriers, as you say, but also the Irish language. So this is something that we've had multiple conversations with teachers in the in-person workshops in particular, who are either from Gaelscoill themselves or are really passionate about equality of access, I suppose, across languages. So it is one of the things that we're looking at building into the next phase of the programme. So if anyone is interested in working with us on that, we'd be very open to hearing from them and exploring the best way to approach it.
The AI Advisory Council also recommends that there's AI literacy training for educators, not only in post-primary, but across all educational levels. So is that something that you're planning on or planning for?
Yeah, so just to come back to the earlier question as well, Claire, myself and a talented postdoctoral researcher in ADAPT, Dr. Mikhail Vizurek, we had a piece in the Irish Times about Gail Scullin back in September and the need for to be working on this issue, and ADAPT would be particularly well placed with the languages expertise that's in it and translation and so on. And for low resource languages, this is a huge thing for AI, that we were able to protect those, and that's in the AI advisory councils. They talk about that as one of the positive things. And to come to your question about AI literacy and why that is called out in there, that's flowing as well from the EU AI Act, which has a big emphasis on AI literacy, and it's actually a requirement, and that this is coming down legislatively in that regard. And it's a large piece about explainable AI as well when it's been used in education, that there's an onus on educators and stakeholders to have explainable AI. So if AI is making critical decisions on education, and this is kind of things like recommender systems or systems that are automated grading or producing outcomes or something like this, or selecting people for entry to an educational institution or something, that those they have particular legal mandates and requirements in the Act under high-risk systems and so on. So there's a huge piece coming down the track for the sector, which is really good, because we have good regulation in Europe, so we should be glad. And that will, as you say, there's primary and post-primary implications for AI, because it's an arrival technology, and it's arrived, and it's everywhere all at once as well. So we need to work on that. But also, one of the things to say on this one, I think, is that just because we have these concepts like explainable AI in the EU AI Act, which is a well-developed concept in computer science, or we have this onus to explain and adapt the decisions of AI, it sort of creates this focus that we must be using it, and so on. And there's also cases where we may need to keep it out of education. So there's a big spectrum of responses in places where it's appropriate or not. And it links with a wider conversation about the place of digital in various parts of school, and there's enough space in curricula for other things like play and unplugged activities and so on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And in terms of, you are running the workshops at the moment with teachers who are currently, in schools teaching, etc. What about initial teacher education? When teachers are learning how to be teachers, is AI literacy becoming more of a factor there, or is ADAPT involved in any way in that?
We're actually in talks at the moment with a couple of third level institutions around introducing the course into initial teacher education. I think there's a big appetite for that, both from the student teachers and from the universities, to really help ensure the teachers are comfortable and have high levels of AI literacy right from the early stages of their careers.
Very good. And of course, AI literacy doesn't stop at the classroom. It's something that's needed across society. As you mentioned, Eamon, what else is ADAPT doing to try and sort of increase that AI literacy more broadly, Laura?
Quite a lot. We're extremely busy and very fortunate to be able to draw on the expertise and the time of people like Eamon and others across ADAPT. We've around about 350 researchers and professional services staff in ADAPT who are working on various aspects of AI education awareness and literacy, and particularly that critical evaluation piece. So obviously we're developing AI systems, but trying to ensure that their role in society is a responsible one and one for good. So I suppose a couple of examples of other communities that we're engaging with. We're delighted over the next couple of weeks. I can't say too much, but we've secured major funding for an AI literacy initiative, a national scale one for older adults. And we're collaborating with a number of leading national advocacy organisations, Age Action, Age Friendly Ireland, the National Disability Authority and others on that. So the first year of that course, of that programme, which will be starting soon, will be around dialogue. So but making sure that the voices of older adults are heard in AI research and development. And then we'll be co-creating specific AI literacy training that will be rolled out next year across the country. So we're really excited about that.
Brilliant. Absolutely. So you're getting all ages and stages in there around AI literacy.
We are indeed, yeah.
Good to hear it. And internationally, are there countries or organisations worldwide who are doing AI literacy in the classroom well? And were you able to draw from that kind of best practice?
So international academic literature on AI in education very much argues that both the technical and human dimensions of AI literacy should be built into AI education, and that it should be implemented by teachers of all subjects, not just those who have some level of expertise in the area. So making sure that teachers are able to explore AI applications, impacts and risks. And again, the international literature proposes that there's a focus on AI concepts, AI applications and AI ethics in society, which again, we've built into the course itself. So I guess in that way, we're building on international best practice in AI education.
Those principles are really important to us, as Laura mentioned, and we've covered already one of the underpinning principles is co-design, a focus on co-design. So we have panels of teachers, and we also adopt an iterative development model for the course itself. So that was developed with feedback from our expert panel of teachers, and we were really trying to one of the things we really need to be doing with AI, international best practice would tell us, is to widen the conversation, continually widen the conversation, bring more people in, because it is essentially a societal issue. So we're very lucky to have a very rich and diverse team of experts who are inputting to the course, including the teachers themselves. And they've got teams of experts working for them, Claire. They're called students. So they're the ones that are going to teach us the most, you know. So I think that was very helpful. And from my perspective in terms of the workshops, I was drawing on some of the work of Mary Rice on how to develop policies for schools in AI and what the political economy of this, because I think that's very important. We will have to put a lot of policy in place. That'll be a big job for schools, and that's something we will have to learn a lot from best practice. But also, I think we have a real opportunity in Ireland to showcase what we're doing, the real strengths of our schools. That's something we're learning from this project. And we have a lot to teach others. So we'll be leading out on the development of best practice by how we respond to this. I think we have really good stories to tell in that regard.
That's great to hear. If teachers want to get involved with the AI Literacy in the Classroom programme, how do they do that? How do they participate?
There's a couple of ways. So the first port of call, I suppose, would be our dedicated website for it. So adaptcentre.ie/AI literacy in the classroom. Maybe Google it would be the quickest way to find it. It's quite a long web address. So teachers can either register straight away and commence the 90-minute self-led online course, and they can break it down into chunks if they want to do it in pieces rather than in one sitting. We have a number of upcoming in-person workshops. So these are half-day workshops at local education support centres across the country. The next one that we're running is the 22nd of March. It'll be in the Sligo Education Centre. I know we're close to capacity at the moment in terms of registrations, but you can register again via our website. And if you have a more general interest in the area, so for example, getting involved in the teacher advisory panel, looking at the Irish language aspects of the course, for example, please just reach out to us. So education@adaptcentre.ie will get you through to us.
So thank you, Laura Grehan and Dr. Eamon Costello, for joining us today. And if you would like to find out more about AI literacy in the classroom, you can find lots of information in the show notes and at www.adaptcentre.ie, or you can Google it, as Laura said. That's it for our podcast this time round. Until next time, from myself, Claire O'Connell, Slán, and thanks for listening.
The Adapt Radio podcast is brought to you by the Adapt Centre at Trinity College, Dublin. Find out more about their extensive research work at adaptcentre.ie. Join us next time to hear about more groundbreaking innovations. To get new episodes automatically, just click the follow button on your player right now. The Adapt Radio podcast is produced by dustpod.io, with episodes monthly on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.